Welcome back to another episode of What Kind of Asian Are You? The Conversation. And today I have a very special human. She's danced with everybody on everything. You may recognize her from opening the Oscar nominated movie La La Land, wearing her yellow dress.
I should have worn yellow.
No, yeah, just kidding. Please welcome this magical artist, Reshma Gajjar. So, what kind of Asian are you, Reshma?
Okay, so I am a first generation American from South Asian descent, specifically India and specifically Gujarat. So I am Gujarati. My mom and dad came to America technically on student visas, but they had fallen in love with each other. They've known each other since they were like children. I mean, like babies. I have a photo of them as like toddlers sitting next to each other. They've known each other forever. And they were not allowed to be married. They were supposed to be married to other people. They're not from the same caste. Their relationship was a secret to their families. And the only way they figured they could actually be together is if they came to America and ran away. Not ran away because technically they were coming on a student visa. But once they got here, they like found each other. That was the plan.
Those rebels.
Which is why they can't tell me. Like, I got lucky because a lot of Indian kids in my community, like, because there's arranged marriage and they followed these things, or they are told they're not allowed to do certain things. Where with me, my mom never, and this is unique for my generation especially. It was very unique that my mom would never tell me who I could or could not be with. But the thing that my parents really did want us to hold on to were the values of like Indian culture or Indian, that is a lot connected to like Hinduism, because I happen to also come from Hindu background. It wasn't about the rituals. It wasn't even about the language. And that was the one thing that I was like, so like, oh, I really wish you forced me to like speak Gujarati with you. Like, yeah. That's the one thing that I'm like, ugh. My sister was speaking Gujarati. Like, that was her first language. And I think because of that, she was put in ESL. And I think that really bothered my parents.
Right.
And so they didn't really try so hard with me, because they were like, we don't want that to happen. Not that that's a bad thing.
Right.
English as a second language is not bad, but to immigrant parents who are like just trying to get their kids to like, succeed and be English speaking. I think my parents didn't force it on me to speak Gujarati, and therefore I actually don't speak it fluently.
I'm unpacking and realizing so many things that my parents sacrificed to allow us to assimilate. As an adult with the child now, it brings me such sadness to think of the things that were lost.
Totally.
But I can change that, but it really does. I think how many things they decided they weren't going to force on us. How did you start doing what you're doing, and how would you describe what you do?
I consider myself a performing artist. I had to put a label on it, because I'm also an actor, and I'm also a model, and I'm also doing a lot of things, but it's all performance based. When I was 3, my mom put me in dance because I had a lot of energy. And she could not find a studio that taught Bharatanatyam, which is the Indian classical dance. And so she ended up putting me in ballet and tap and jazz and Polynesian. Totally like I was doing
Why not?
I was doing luau's at like 5. Dance like literally saved me as a first generation American, because I did not have any outlets to be me. And it was my first friend. It was my first therapist. It was my first expression. I felt free. It was the only thing that my mom gave me freedom to really do. Wasn't really allowed to hang out. Hang out was not a term that I could use in my house. If I said I want to hang out with my friends, it was an immediate no, because hanging out leads to like
drugs. How do you feel like your racial identity has played a part in who you are?
It has played a really big part, obviously, in what I do.
Hmm.
I mean, I think it has limited my opportunities. I know if I was like a white girl with blue eyes and blonde hair, I would have probably made it really fast in the entertainment industry, or made it, whatever that means, right?
Has that realization happened later on in your career, or was that from the get-go? Did you always feel like it was a little bit harder?
I always felt it was a little bit harder. I feel like I was typecast because I was good enough to make it to the end, but then I would never get the job. And this happened for years, to the point where I just gave it up. And I was like, you know what? This business is really starting to break my heart. And it's making me not like dance anymore. I'm going to leave. And I ended up going to India and like serving the motherland. I ended up going to India and working with a nonprofit that was part of like a nonprofit that was teaching kids who are experiencing homelessness. And one of the projects that I was part of was choreographing and help write and direct a musical. And so my experience with these kids was kind of the turning point for me to come back to America, because I saw how amazing and talented they were, and I knew they were never going to have the opportunities that I had being an American. So I was like, I went back to America and I just decided to change my definition of success, not care whether I worked or not, and just dance because I loved it, perform because I love it. And once I made that decision energetically, it was like everything shifted. And at the same time, the timing of it was perfect, because it was when the world was ready to open their eyes to people that looked like me. And then I started booking jobs. It was like it all kind of happened at the same time. And that's when I booked the Madonna tour. The thing that was a deterrent for me to work in the industry, which is I'm just going to call it race and ethnicity,
Hmm.
right? The thing that I think was stopping it, then suddenly was the thing that was interesting. It was
Right.
it's like a mind,
Fuck.
right? So I decided, I was like, I'm gonna do a combination fusion of like Indian dance and American dance, so that like it's different. I had my Indian friend, who was trained in Bharatanatyam, teach me some very like basic moves that wasn't like going to, because then I was like, I can't appropriate my own culture, right? And like
I
start,
can't fake it. I can't
I
fake it.
can't fake this, but in some degree, I kind of did,
Hmm.
which again, but I knew it was the only way to get in through the door. I'm like, oh, I can't get in because I'm brown. Oh, well, let me get in because I'm brown. And so I had to really lean into the brownness. So, like, why can't I just be me? Why can't I just be whoever this person is? Anyway, so I ended up doing that and I ended up getting the tour, because she was like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's a character in my show,
Hmm.
right? And so became a character in her show. And what was cool was that, yes, I represented South Asians by doing that.
Is there an experience of racism, microaggression, anything like discrimination growing up or in the industry?
So when I think about that question, it's like nothing comes to mind,
Hmm.
because I'm I like you, I think the microaggression was louder than a specific thing. Like I can actually remember my mom and sister experiencing racism stronger and louder. Those experiences I remember more than my own personal specific big one. When it's happening to you, you're just kind of
Hmm.
like surviving. You just
Hmm.
adapt and survive, or make it cute. This journey of trying to like this really uncomfortable, clunkety journey for all of us, like in this in between that I feel like I'm in.
Hmm.
The more and more now I'm in a place where I'm like, oh, I'm just going to be me,
Hmm.
because that is American. Like that is the version of Indian that I am. I think that's why opening La La Land really meant a lot to me,
Hmm.
because I wasn't an Indian girl opening La La Land. I was an American girl who happened to look like this. He didn't put me in Indian clothes. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that. It was like, oh, she's just one of the many people who live in LA, which I am one of the many people who live in LA.
What was your favorite childhood meal?
I ate a lot of Mexican food growing up,
Uh-huh.
or our version of Mexican
Uh-huh.
food.